Thank you, Carmen, for this wonderful introduction. Dear colleagues, as Flanders' leading art museum, the Royal Museum of Fine Arts Antwerp aims to be a source of inspiration for the generations of today and tomorrow. The collection contains masterpieces by Flemish masters from the late Middle Ages to the present day. You will discover both the razor-sharp powers of observation of Jan van Eyck, the theatrical gestures of Peter Paul Rubens, and the mischievous nonconformism of James Ensor. It presents a great number of must-see masterpieces. International stars like Simone Martini, Jean Fouquet, Antonello da Messina, Auguste Rodin, Modigliani, or Georges Gros make their mark too. The museum is home to 5,263 works of art. And at present, we show 614 exhibits in 38 galleries. 25 must-see highlights have been selected to guide the visitor throughout the collection. They can be recognized in the galleries by their bronze-colored labels. The Royal Museum is usually perceived as a museum of old art, but the reality is that less than a quarter of the collection dates from before 1800. So there's a large collection of 20th century art to see here. And today, the museum counts 114 committed collaborators. The Royal Museum of Fine Arts has reopened on September 25th last year after a 100 million euro renovation that took more than a decade. The master plan was supervised by the Flemish Department of Culture, Youth and Media. In this period, the monumental 1890 museum building and its red and green galleries were largely restored to their former glory. In the former courtyards of the renovated building, impressive new white cube spaces arose. Both the renovation and the new building was taken care of by Diki Scipio of Kaan Architecten, a Rotterdam-based studio. Her design won last year's European Award for Architectural Heritage Intervention. The additions provide us with 40% of extra exhibition space. The museum thus figures about this master plan can be found in the exhibition, the making of on this first floor. The new collection presentation follows this architectural logic. That's the exhibition here next door. The old museum rooms on the second floor mainly display works of art by old masters from a distant past that exude natural and ideal beauty and tell of gods, kings, people and nature. They are presented through 17 accessible themes that are explained by a text in each room. As before, the central galleries host several celebrated altarpieces by Rubens that show the artist's stylistic evolution. By adding 17th century Spanish works to the altarpieces by Rubens, Van Dyck, Segers and Schut in the adjacent room, we want to underline the long-standing historical links between Flanders and Spain. The rooms on the right side of the old building show older religious paintings and sculptures that were commissioned for churches, monasteries, and private chapels. The Evil Gallery illustrates how devils embody various human fears. The religious section includes also rooms called the Madonna, and then here, for instance, suffering, redemption, the more intimate prayer, and heavens. The prayer room is, you can sit down in front of, and I can go, no, as the first. In the prayer room, you can sit down in front of the Flemish masterpieces that to absorb the minute details at ease. The rooms at the rear and left of the first floor display works of art made for palaces, halls, or residences. And on the screen here, the gallery on power shows artistic propaganda during the 80 Years' War, which eventually led to the division of the Netherlands, as you all know. You will also discover galleries on landscape, portraiture, entertainment, morality, and still life. Turned into a storage room and conservation studio in the 1950s, the large gallery in front of the first floor was returned to the visitor. It evokes the salons of the 19th century. It is as if one walks into a time capsule. Then, the mezzanine on the third floor hosts our print room, a selection of our small modern sculpture collection, and the gallery showing the celebrated Van Herk collection with Bozzetti and Modelli, given as a permanent loan by the King Baudouin Foundation. In the new museum galleries on the first and fourth floor, we mainly show work by modern artists that is expressive or abstract by nature. It is not art that promotes faith or morality. Modern artists abandon old stories and realism to get to the essence of things. They experiment with light, color, and form. The exhibited works were mostly created with exhibition spaces, galleries, and museums in mind. In the new museum, experiments with chiaroscuro by Jordaens, Breitner or Leblanc, or the use of white in a landscape by Bruegel the Younger or Brusselmans are displayed side by side independently of the subject. A very Instagrammable contemporary work was created in situ in the adjacent room next to the light room by Boy and Erik Stappaerts, as you can see here. Being a pivotal figure between the old and modern art and shown in full glory, James Ensor exceptionally gets his own rooms on the first floor. I remind you that we have something like 39 paintings by the master and some 600 drawings, photos, and also letters, so that's a big deal. We have the largest and most representative collection, and aim to become also the center of expertise on this artist. The museum also holds, of course, a Rubens collection of European fame, and in collaboration with universities and other museums, we conduct pioneering art historical and technical research on the work of these two masters. A thematic approach may not be new to the art world, but it is new to us. In our case, it presents some advantages. All visitors should feel welcome here, also those without prior knowledge. For many, though, chronology is no longer a self-evident guideline. We may not get visitors interested in art history, but we may get them interested in themes and stories. Also, the museum collection is far from encyclopedic, and not all eras are represented by works of the highest quality. In a chronological display, this quickly leads to overcrowded galleries and rooms that nobody visits. A thematic display overcomes this weakness and distributes visitors throughout the museum. Inevitably, some good paintings and sculptures that don't fit into the current themes must remain in storage for the time being. Several of them await restoration, while others may perhaps be loaned to other institutions. Koen Bulkens and myself will be able to show you some hidden treasures in the excursion to the storage this afternoon and tomorrow. Modern and contemporary masters comment on the old masters and ancient art. An ancient art is shown as a pathfinder for the moderns. These juxtapositions can be quite sharp, but also sometimes harmonious or witty. The museum team hopes to awaken the homo ludens in each of us. We feel art temples can do with some humor, be more playful indeed. We pursue an active policy of filling gaps in the collection, strengthening existing ensembles and showing work by new masters. We try to make the permanent display more dynamic and add more international and female artists. As we have no acquisition budget, we largely depend on donations, gifts, inheritance and loans by other museums and private collectors. We are extremely grateful that number of international masterpieces from Museum Boijmans van Beuningen temporarily enriches our display. Just as grateful are we for the recent loan of a work by Artemisia Gentileschi from a private collector. You could have seen in the previous slide, but I don't know how to go back here. It doesn't seem to work. Room texts and interactive in-depth screens provide us with the necessary interpretation. An immersive experience on the first floor draws the visitor into details of paintings. We are convinced that the use of multimedia will make the museum more attuned to the world of the digital generations. A trail with 10 small and large-scale interventions by designer Christopher Coppens equally engages families with children to look at art more intensely. We go for an audience mediation that pays attention to diversity and inclusion and visitors with disabilities. A good example is Radio Bart, a project in which our blind collaborator Bart, who is also a radio man, he learns to look closer at art by questioning the visitor. Building and collection are sources of inspiration to 22 performers in music, dance, theater, and poetry. They launched their project during the winter of 2026 and continue to do so in the spring of this year. The Royal Museum of Fine Arts takes care of the conservation and restoration of the collection. In the museum's restoration studio, domestic and foreign conservators and trainees exchange knowledge and gain practical experience. An impressive number of artworks got treatment during the museum renovation. Thanks to the sponsoring of philanthropic organizations and private companies and the help of fellow museums, our collection shines as never before. Several large altarpieces by Memling, Floris and De Vos were treated in the past decade. Our colleague Gwen Borms will tell you all more about the current restoration of the Metzès altarpiece during the excursion to the conservation studio. Moreover, the restoration of 2 major Rubens altarpieces will start in October this year. A varied exhibition program aims to interest a diverse audience. We plan 2 larger exhibitions a year that are complemented by smaller niche presentations in the print room. Our first large exhibition, Heads, Krasse Koppen, however, is made in collaboration with the National Gallery of Ireland and deals with faces in Northern art. It's opening on October 20th of this year. Let me briefly make promotion for this show. Early modern artists were obsessed with the human face. They explored its morphology, the way light defined facial feature and expressive powers. The reason was that faces were considered key narrative elements in history paintings. This was especially the case in north of the Alps. Italian theorists like Alberti believed that the entire body expressed the movements of the soul, but the northern colleagues stressed that they were above all mirrored in the face. In the early 17th century, the obsession with faces culminated in paintings of heads without a narrative context called tronies. Our exhibition highlights the broader artistic and cultural interest in the human face, which led eventually to the birth of autonomous tronies. Having defined them in the introductory space, we will show studies of the human face by artists to be used in history paintings. A next session deals with heads in costume by both 16th and 17th century artists. The last two sections show tronies at their summit in the 17th century, dealing with expression and with light, respectively. And the show will make part, there will be a CODART focus that is devoted to this exhibition in November this year. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole KMSKA team wishes you a great CODART Congress and an inspiring museum visit. Thank you.